It's one big club and you ain't in it. So when we see people on the right going at each other and calling out the people they voted for in real time, that's good. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a separate conversation if we want to talk about who is controlled opposition, who's captured, what are they allowed to say, what are they not. That's a very important conversation to have too, and we can talk about that when it comes to Tucker. We can talk about that when it comes to Nick Fuentes. We can talk about that when it comes to Candace. Absolutely. However, the fact that the conversations are happening at all is good. The fact that Candace, Tucker, Nick bring up stuff that's important for us to be critical about is good. And then we can take that information and do what we want to do with it because we're not controlled. We're not captured. I have yet to get a Zell from any military operation of any sort, let alone a Mossad or a CIA or a FBI check, let alone a Pfizer check. I haven't got any check of anything. So when that comes in, you'll notice because we'll be changing our show tune. And then you guys can call us out and say, hey, Matt, that's interesting that you're only talking about certain things now. Why is that? Also, it looks like you have this incredibly lavish studio now. Where did you get that? So those are the things you guys can have every right to ask us when the checks start coming in. But in the meantime, we're going to be honest with this work and give credit when credit's due. With that said, it's important to look at the ramifications and the results of the fact that everybody's going at each other on the right. We covered the Republican Jewish Coalition Summit about 2 weeks ago, and that entire summit was designed to target and shame and threaten anybody on the right that wasn't in line with the Zionist agenda. That's what that event was. Mark Levin was a big speaker there. You had Lindsey Graham. You had a bunch of other people they pulled out of the woodwork. You had Floyd Mayweather Jr. there. So you had people there. It didn't go as well as they thought. We still, there's the reactions to that were not what they hoped for. We know that Tucker has doubled down. We know Nick Fuentes has doubled down. Fuentes has challenged Ben Shapiro to a debate, who it doesn't look like Shapiro wants to have that debate. We said on the show last week, we thought it would be a lot more productive if Tucker Carlson had a debate with Ben Shapiro. So all that, none of that has come to be, but we did see something weird happen. Let's start with this. This is Ted Cruz still trying to, I want to say damage control, but he's still trying to uplift the narrative from that RJC summit as he's talking to Mark Levin on his show about anti-Semitism and why it's a major problem on the right.
In the last 6 months, I have seen more anti-Semitism on the right than at any time in my lifetime. It is rising on the right, and it is dangerous. And if we look away, if we refuse to denounce it, if we are scared of it, it could destroy the Republican Party just like it has destroyed the Democrat Party. I think we have an obligation to stand up, to speak out. Many elected Republicans are terrified to say anything. And I think this is a moment where everyone decides, where do you stand? Are you willing to stand up and speak the truth? And it is going to matter in the coming years whether our party and even more fundamentally our country survives.
So that's the language they're going to continue to double down on. Whether they're mentioning the people by name or not, we know who he's referring to. We know he's talking about Tucker. We know he's talking about Candace. We know he's talking about Nick Fuentes. Those are the people he's talking about. So they're not going to let up on that. They're actively going after the people who campaigned with Trump, campaigned on Trump, gave money to Trump, put their name in all of their millions and millions of followers they put behind Trump. Candace Owen recently said that she regrets telling people to vote for Trump. Highly commendable. She said that. Highly commendable. I can't think of one person on the left who said after just 1 year of Biden in office, said, I regret to have told my people to vote for that deranged, senile warmonger who started a proxy war in Ukraine said F you to the labor movement, destroyed labor strikes, like the railroad strikes, gave an FU to the student loan people that he represented, said did an FU to women's rights, and of course started funding a genocide in Gaza and put Israel first. So not to mention the censorship and the lockdowns and the destroying of free speech and the forced vaccinations and bodily autonomy out the window. It's so interesting that we knew all that about Biden 1 year in. Isn't that interesting? We knew all of that about Biden 1 year in, and nobody on the left that voted for him. Now, people that didn't vote for him like us, we were loud about it. But I'm talking about people who campaigned for him, people who told their followers, millions of followers, to vote for him. Nobody spoke up. So again, I'm going to double down and say Candace Tucker Fuentes, I'm going to say particularly Candace, who has the courage to say, I effed up. I regret telling my followers to vote for that guy. Very commendable. We give her props for that. This is Candace doubling down after an interviewer tries to see if they can tip her because she is being attacked right now on a very large scale. Here's Candace not giving an F about any of it. What courage she's showing right here.
That sounds like you're saying Jews. Does the word they mean Jews? When you're talking about Jews, yes.
But if I'm not talking about Jews, then they doesn't mean Jews. When I say they want us to believe this or they want us to believe that and you hear Jews, that's your own derangement, right? If I want to say something about Jews, I'll say it. If I want to say something about Israel, I will say it. If I want to say Jews, I will say Jews. I don't fear saying Jews. When I say Zionists run the media, I mean Zionists run the media. People that support the political ideology of Israel run the media. Any other things that I can help clarify?
But are you familiar with this like very long-standing trope?
Couldn't give a shit about a trope.
That's good. That's good. I like that. That's very good. Very good. Well, look, there is some breakdown happening when you have Candace just as vocal as ever. She's not taking any step back. We did notice that Tucker took a little step back. He looked a little like he was very affected by that RJC summit. He was very affected. So he was like, oh, I got to apologize to anyone who's going to kill me. Let me apologize to all the potential assassins, because we know the Mossad loves having hit lists. They have a massive track record. You guys should look it up on Wikipedia. They actually list all of the assassins that occurred. Even there's been like 100 of them. Even in this decade, the last 10 years alone, there's been like 100 of them just listed there. You guys can check that out. We might do a story on that part actually at one point. But there is some breakdown happening. I think the tide is turning on Israel, and I think the people that have been championing it, I think Ben Shapiro is going to be the last. He's going to go down with the ship, but there's others that are looking like they're having to maneuver a little bit. One particular I wanted to point out, I thought this was going to be a fake out tweet. I didn't realize that she was serious about it, but it's worth mentioning it, and we'll break this one down. This was a big deal yesterday. Laura Loomer tweeted out, to sum it up, Laura Loomer tweeted out that she wants to defund Israel. Shocking words coming from her. Shocking words. Let's see. This is the tweet. After spending this last week in Israel and along the Syrian border, I've reached a firm conclusion. Israel must end its dependence on U.S. aid, and the U.S. must end all aid to Israel. Where is she going with this? This is interesting. Why the maneuver here, Laura? Let's see. I truly hope by the end of the Trump administration and by the beginning of a new administration in 2028 that we see zero aid flowing to Israel. U.S. taxpayers currently send $3.8 billion annually to Israel. Well, okay, that's not accurate. We've sent far more than that, especially since October 7th. We're closer to the 40-50 billion at this point, extra, not additional. We're talking additional funds. So she's not mentioning the additional funds, but that's our standard. That's our standard amount, 3.8 billion. But we have to do extra money because of October 7th, right? Because we condemn Hamas, right? So she leaves that out. But anyways, she's saying let's not do that anymore. And in return, we get roughly 48 billion back through defense contracts. Now, this number is also skewed. It's not real. That's not true. But she's saying there are defense contracts, that's for sure. Pharmaceuticals and technology, the math is clear, but the military aid itself serves as a golden handcuffs on Israel and a constant source of agitation for Americans that has manifested into a distraction from domestic policy. Even though our investment directly serves the interests of no, it doesn't. But okay, our interests of U.S. national security through counterterrorism. No, we create the terrorism, and then we have excuses to do more terror. But okay. We'll give you, okay, let's say there's counterterrorism that we're benefiting from, which we're not, and the shared intelligence in the Middle East, which we don't really need, we don't care about, because we don't need to be aligned with a genocidal, psychotic country illegally occupying the people and in a apartheid state, ethno state that wants more and more land because it wants to follow their scripture and chosen people, all that. So you guys know that, all that. But what Laura Loomer's doing here is she's acknowledging the problem of being the supporter of this in principle. She's recognizing that part, not because it's wrong what Israel does, but because it ties us to them and makes Americans upset, especially right-wingers who are absolutely against giving handouts to people, right? So why is it that we've been giving Israelis free healthcare this entire time? How interesting. So maybe she's understanding that part of the puzzle now. Maybe she's understanding that that's a hypocritical stance to take when you've been actively fighting against Democrats that want to give handouts to everyone. But the entire time we've been giving housing and trips and healthcare and all sorts of subsidies. If you sign up for Israel, if you convert to Judaism, you move over on the taxpayer dime, not the Israeli taxpayer, the U.S. taxpayer. So she understands that that is a contradiction and a cord that needs to be cut. Okay. Even though she thinks that they help us with intelligence and, counterterrorism. Okay. True America First policy means we stop dictating to a sovereign nation how to run its government and military, and that we stop telling Israel how to respond to Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah. Interesting coming from Laura Loomer right now. Cut the U.S. aid. Israel becomes fully sovereign. America First means we don't tell other countries how to govern or how to neutralize threats. America First means we don't get to tell Israel not to eradicate Hamas. Well, we don't get to tell them anyway. They get to do whatever they want, by the way. But it would be them on their own. I think that's a point she's making. Even in her delusional Zionist psychotic assessment of what's actually happening in the Middle East, she's recognizing that there's this unnecessary tie that actually is hurting our country, having that tie. Interesting. It means we don't get to tell Mossad to not kill the Ayatollah when he's hiding in a bunker. America First means the U.S. no longer gets to dictate to Israel how they manage their nuclear arsenal. Well, guess what, Laura? We never got to do that anyways, because when we did, they punished us for it. When JFK said, we want to manage your nuclear arsenal, please be transparent about your nukes, and please register your foreign lobby, the American Zionists, which later became AIPAC, please register it as a foreign lobby. So I like how she says, we no longer get to dictate. Well, our own president in 1963 did not get to dictate. He was taught a lesson for attempting to dictate those things. So however you look at it, if you think we had any power in this situation before, what you're saying, Laura, is let's not have that association anymore. Let them do whatever the F they want to do. That's a powerful statement coming from her. Now, of course, there's pushback from this because we know she's still a Zionist. I think this guy, he summed it up very, very well with this response. This one got a lot of engagement, and I want to read this one because this is basically where I feel we kind of fall in this. I'm sorry, there's a little more of her tweet first. Okay, blah blah blah. America first means liberation from being a global babysitter. Once the aid to Israel ends, the Pentagon's leash comes off. Israel's wars becomes Israel's wars. In theory, yeah, that would work, except they are 100% dependent on us. So they actually couldn't. So Laura, I hate to burst your bubble. They actually couldn't do any of this without us. Somebody has to take the loan, right? Somebody has to create the debt for them. That's us. We are the ultimate debt creators. We create it more than anyone. And so we have no problem on the leash on the banks that own our country. We have no problem going into more debt, writing, as RFK Jr. famously said on October 8th, 2023, RFK Jr. told the world on a tweet that Netanyahu gets a blank check. So that blank check is 100% needed. And if you cut it off, Laura, they can't actually do the things they're doing. But hey, appreciate the sentiment about cutting them off, right? So we lose the leverage to urge restraint on bombing Iran or eradicating Hamas. Well, we don't have leverage anyways, because there's all these laws saying it's a crime to do that. And we get deplatformed and we get punished and we get suspended and we get expelled and we get deported and we get banned on social media and we get beaten and we get humiliated and we get bullied and we get smeared. We get fired. Did I cover everything? But apparently Laura Loomer thinks we have leverage right now to urge restraint. But okay, let's go with that. Okay. But by cutting the cord, she's saying we lose the ability to tell Israel to not enter Gaza. Because we had the ability to tell them before. I didn't see that. Otherwise, we would have not done it, right? We would have said, don't do that. We're not sending you bombs. We're not sending you money. But no, we didn't actually get to do that. But apparently we lose the ability officially to tell Israel not to neutralize Hezbollah. Yes, we'll forfeit that 48 billion. It's not 48 billion. You just make that number's made up. And return our 3.8 billion. Again, not a real number. That's the standard amount. That's not the excess amount. We've paid multiply more billions since the 3.8. That is every year. We've paid at least 40, 50 billion more. You know this because you were every time that Biden kept giving more money, that was additionally from the 3.8. This is what the blank check was about, Laura. You know this. You know that the 3.8 is just the base pay. You know this. Americans will no longer have a scapegoat to blame for every domestic problem. In the end, it's a win-win. Okay, however you want to come to that final conclusion, however you got there in your twisted Zionist logic, you got to the part where we say, let's cut the cord. So that is good, I guess. But this kind of sums up a nice response here. Oh, there's the picture. There she is. Her little trip where she bonded with Israelis and she bonded with people on the border of Syria, which is now controlled by the U.S. and Israel. By the way, that's the whole thing. That's like the expansion of the Greater Israel Project is still underway. It hasn't stopped. Here's the response I was looking for. Here we go. Joel Rayner. This is great. This is a great response. Well, bravo, Miss Loomer. After a week abroad and a few selfies near a war zone, you've solved Middle Eastern geopolitics with all the precision of a drunken performing brain surgery with a butter knife. Nice. Your grand proposal to end U.S. aid to Israel so that Israel may commit war crimes with greater efficiency is, I must say, a masterstroke of moral gymnastics. Why settle for complicity when you can have plausible deniability? Love the rant. One can almost hear the future historians. It was at this moment that America decided the best way to promote peace was to remove the last remaining safety catch from its favorite machine gun. And this 48 billion return you speak of, marvelous. I'm sure, though, widows, orphans, and taxpayers alike would be comforted to know that genocide, while ghastly, remains such a splendid investment opportunity. In short, Laura, your vision of sovereignty is like a toddler with scissors declaring independence from the nanny. It will no doubt end in tears, mostly someone else's. But hey, listen, I will go further. And again, that was a great response, but I will go even further and just double down on the part that they can't actually do this without us. They can't do it without us. They need us. That's why they have to capture all our politicians and capture our government, capture our media. If you could do it without us, you would do it without us. Do you guys understand that part? You need us. You need us to be infiltrated at all levels, from media to entertainment to the banks. Obviously, the banks, that's the whole point, that we go into debt by the same banking families that then own us, but we write the check to you. So you need all of that to work perfectly for Greater Israel Project to happen. So regardless of what happens here, I'm saying this is not going to happen, and it's not about it going to happen. Just because Laura Loomer says it on a tweet doesn't mean anything other than the fact she said it. And that's good. Still has millions of people listening to her. So this is good that it was said, but it can't actually happen. It's not going to happen. Israel will eventually fall, but it's not going to be because we, cut off turned off the knob, the unlimited water fountain of money, as RFK Jr. once declared, unlimited funds, right? Blank check to Netanyahu. They're going to fail because they're going to fail. And then after that, we will then no longer be paying for what we're paying for. But we don't just get to stop paying. That's not a thing. Not when our entire government is captured by AIPAC, and even the ADL is still up to it, still pushing laws in Congress to make our pushback on this illegal, pushing laws to make social media companies paying massive fines to allow us on here talking about this. So that's still a thing. So no, I don't think this is going to happen. I do appreciate that Laura Loomer decided to put that out for whatever reason. And it might just be she put it out because she sees that the end is near, right? The end is nigh, right? That Israel has only so long of a clock that is ticking, that maybe a disassociation with them now, and maybe with her that she could say, hey, I said we should cut off. So maybe she's just putting herself in the position where she could say she said it. And that's probably what's happening here. But yeah, interesting developments. And one more thing. I told you earlier that Ben Shapiro was doubling down. He's not letting up, but he's also showing cracks in the dam, because I just want to show this clip of he was on with Charlemagne, and the topic of reparations came up, and I just thought this was really interesting timing that this conversation was happening at the same time Laura Loomer is saying, let's cut off aid to Israel. And Ben Shapiro is hit by this reparations analogy that he seems to stutter through. Check it out. They got to. I just said that reparations don't ever work, and then you reminded me about Germany paying reparations to the Jews, and I just there were people saying they shouldn't have done it. Okay, go on. After making this is incredible. This is incredible. So after making the point, after Ben Shapiro makes the point that reparations don't elevate people because they're dependent on a payoff, and their mindset is bad at that point, and they don't want to put the pedal to the metal and make their life work and make their families work and get through the hard times. Oh, in the case of Israel, yeah, there are people that didn't want Germany, and then but yeah, they got the money, but that has nothing to do with why Israel was successful independently. Wait, I thought you just said getting reparations hurts people. So now you have to make the argument that those reparations hurt Holocaust survivors, right? At the same time, you said that there was another reason they were so successful, not because of that. So they were hurt by that. So you're saying they shouldn't have gotten those reparations from Germany And by the way, we're talking reparations. What is the 3.8 billion that Laura Loomer admits to? That base amount, that minimal amount we pay. What does that go to? Iron Dome. What else does it go to? Healthcare, right? Housing, right? Some sort of UBI they get. They can submit to their own government when they're there. Oh, we're having a hard time. You don't have to work. You don't want to work? Just submit some paperwork. The government will pay. That's how it works in Israel. All that is our money. So Ben Shapiro has to maneuver out of this. But yeah, keep telling us how, oh, don't pay attention to the Germany money behind the curtain. Don't pay attention. We'll take it. And he says, that's fine. Wow. How to maneuver when you're a snake? How to maneuver? So interesting, right? That he didn't seem prepared for this. But the stuttering, that's not true. You're lying. That's not how it works. It's 3.8 is the base, and besides, it's not. No, that's not how it works. We are paying for their everyday costs, their health care, their schooling, their housing. Basically, a UBI available for people there. They can reapply every 2 years, and they can get another UBI. And when it runs out, they can apply again. They don't even have to work at all. And this is the right wingers telling us, oh, those horrible Democrats wanting all those SNAP recipients. No, they're just so lazy and they don't do it all. Meanwhile, Israel, more money. And Charlemagne is saying, we'll take the money. That's fine. You can have it. Well, there goes your whole case about how reparations don't.
True.
Well, thanks for clarifying. Well, to sum up this story, Jeff Epstein parody account tells us this. Germany has given Israel over $88 billion in reparations, which Ben Shapiro says hasn't affected them at all as far as how they've been so successful. Because as Ben Shapiro tells us, reparations hurt people. They hurt people. So that had nothing to do with it, right? The U.S. has given Israel over $312 billion in foreign aid. What has Israel ever given to the world? Great question. Question, Jeff Epstein parody account. So these are the numbers that they're always going to skew when it's convenient to skew them, as Ben Shapiro does. Even Laura Loomer does. But make no mistake, however you spin it, however the Zionists are spinning it, and the money and the justification, all this stuff, that it's not really a genocide, and oh, what about all these other countries, blah, blah, blah. The fact that Laura Loomer wants to defund Israel right now says something about how far we've come. So we are making progress. And kudos to those on the right who voted for Trump and have the courage to speak out only a year into the second term and say, we got that wrong. And I urge people to look at why we got it wrong, because it's not make America great again. It's make Israel great again.